Alright, so in this Algebra 1 video, we are going to be talking more about parabolas. Let's get started. Alright, so in our last video about parabolas, we learned how to graph parabolas, graph quadratics. We graphed two equations, which were polynomial equations, and we got a parabola, which in a linear equation you have a straight line like this, usually something like this, but in a parabola you can have curves, you can have circles, and we'll talk about equations of circles in another video about parabolas in part 2 or in part 3 or 4. But in this video, for part 2, we're going to finish up our basics by doing another variation of this. So I'm going to do y equals negative x squared. Now I want you to graph it, and I want to see your results. Okay, so hopefully you've come up with a solution. I'm going to have my x and my y table. I'm going to plug in some values. I'm going to put in a negative 2. When I put in a negative 2 squared is 4. But we have a negative over here, so that makes it negative 4. Now we're going to put in a negative 1. Negative 1 squared, that's 1. We have a negative though. We slap on the negative, we get negative 1. Now let's check 0. 0 squared is 0, and then we're just going to have negative 0, which isn't really a thing, so it's just 0. Now let's put in a positive value. Let's put in 1. If I put in 1 squared is 1. But we have a negative. Slap on the negative. If we put in a 1, we get back 1, square the 1, 1, negative 1. Now let's put in a positive 2. Now if I place in a 2, I have a negative 2. I have 2 squared, which is 4. Slap on the negative, I get negative 4. Now we have the same outputs but different inputs. And now we're going to graph it. Graph the polynomial equation. So I'm going to plug in x is equal to negative 2. And x is negative 2 over here. Y is negative 4. Negative 2, negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be over here. Actually, we can place one over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It can be right here. Negative 2. And this is 4. So negative 2, negative 4. That's going to be right over here. It's the exact graph location of it. There we go. Now we can just erase our dotted thing. There we go. We have 1 point plotted. Now, we know the vertex is going to be at the origin. We have our axis of symmetry over here is our y-axis. Just like last time. When we plotted this, it was going, this time we have a point down here. This tells us that it might go down, but we're going to see what happens. We're just going to find out. You just have to watch and find out. When x is negative 1, y is also negative 1. Negative 1, negative 1, that's going to be right here. Alright, right over here. Now we've plotted the origin. When x is 1, y is negative 1. So when x is 1, y is going to be negative 1. So that's going to be over here. When x is 2, y is negative 4. 2, negative 4. And that's all the points we have. Let's connect them. Clearly have a parabola. Now you see we have a parabola, but this time it's facing down. So last time the parabola went up almost in a curved V shape. We have a curve down here. Now it's almost like an A, like the base. If we have an A like this, a curved A, it's almost like this is the shape of our parabola. Before it was like almost like this, a curved V, or like a spread apart U, and now it's the complete opposite. We have something like this, which would be like a curved A or something like that. So now we notice a thing that when it's negative, it's in the bottom two quadrants of our Cartesian plane. When it's positive, we saw that 4x squared and x squared. Now, to end off the video on part 2 of parabolas, we're going to graph y is equal to negative 4x squared. Equals to negative 4x squared. And we're going to graph this on our Cartesian plane. Now, before we graph this, we're going to have an xy table, and we are going to plug in some values of x. Now, we already know our inputs, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 2, and 1. Those are always going to be your inputs. Now, if we put in negative 2 here, how are we going to do this? Well, if we've put in negative 2 here, negative 2 squared. Negative 2 squared is 2 times 2 basically, or negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4. Then we have negative 4 times 4. Negative 4 multiplied by 4, negative 4 multiplied by 4 is negative 16. Now let's place a negative 1 there. Negative 1 squared, that's 1. Negative 4 times 1, that's negative 4. Now 0. If I put in a 0 here, 0 squared is 0. Negative 4 times 0 is 0. Let's place a 2. 2 times, well, 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times a 4 is negative 16. If I place a 1, 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And you can see the outputs are all the same. That tells us that this is working. We have, our points are correct. And now I want you to graph it. I want you to graph it on the Cartesian plane. Compare your results with my results. Alright, so we're now going to graph it. Now, when x is negative 2, y is negative 16. Now, obviously, we don't have 16 marks here, so we're going to count by 2's. So, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and then 16. So that's right over here. Got a negative 2, and I got 16. That's right over here. On to the next one. X is negative 1, y is 4. Now we have negative 1, y is negative 4. So 1, negative 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be over here. And this is actually supposed to be a little bit more out. You really want to make sure everything's accurate when it comes to plotting points on really anything. 2, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. It's going to be over here somewhere. So it's going to be right over here. Exactly right over here. And the thing with parabolas is in linear equations, you just need 2 points and you can form a line. With parabolas, you don't really know. And now when x is 0, y is 0, we have our vertex over here. This tells us it's going to be similar. When x is 2, y is negative 16. 2, negative 16 is over here. So that's just going to be right over here. Alright, and it's supposed to be an equal distance, so we're going to place it a little bit more right over here. That's good. And we're going to erase all of this. And now we're going to plug in our last value. When x is 1, y is negative 4. That's just over here. And now we see we have a parabola built for us. So we can go down here, go like that, and we have our parabola. Now over here, our parabola looks like this. Over here, our parabola looks different. You can see how the parabolas are changing. And we can assume that whenever it's negative, it's going to be facing downward like this. Because if we remove the negative, the graph would look literally just a reflection. So it's basically a reflection of the positive shape. That's what you're doing in parabola. So hopefully this video is helpful, and yeah, it's part 2 of parabolas.